जम्मू कश्मीर के विकास के लिए प्रधानमंत्री के संबोधन के बाद वहां के लोगों का बढ़ा सरकार पर भरोसा। घाटी में धीरे धीरे सामान्य होने लगे हैं हालात। केरल, महाराष्ट्र, कर्नाटक, छत्तीसगढ़ समेत देश के कई राज्यों में बाढ़ से हालात बेकाबू। केरल तट और उसके आसपास 40 से 50 किलोमीटर प्रति घंटे की रफ्तार से तेज हवाएं चलने की चेतावनी। कोच्चि एयरपोर्ट रविवार शाम 3 बजे तक हुआ बंद। बाढ़ से बेकाबू हालात पर गृह मंत्रालय की लगातार नजर। हालात से निपटने के लिए एनडीआरएफ की कुल 83 टीमें तैनात। वायुसेना, नौसेना और कोस्ट गार्ड की 173 टीम ने अब तक 82,000 से अधिक लोगों को सुरक्षित जगहों पर पहुंचाया। राष्ट्रपति रामनाथ कोविंद ने 4 अहम अधिनियम को दी मंजूरी। गैर कानूनी गतिविधियां रोकथाम संशोधन अधिनियम 2019, मजदूरी संहिता 2019 अधिनियम, राष्ट्रीय चिकित्सा आयोग अधिनियम 2019, निरसन और संशोधन अधिनियम 2019 को राष्ट्रपति से मिली हरी झंडी। उन्नाव रेप केस के बुरे फंसे विधायक कुलदीप सिंह सेंगर। दिल्ली की 30 हजारी अदालत ने 376 आईपीसी और पॉक्सो के तहत तय किए आरोप। और राष्ट्रीय फिल्म पुरस्कारों की घोषणा से पहले जूरी ने सौंपी सूचना प्रसारण मंत्री प्रकाश जावड़ेकर को रिपोर्ट। अब से थोड़ी देर बाद होगी पुरस्कारों की घोषणा। नमस्कार, मैं हूं आपके साथ आरेंद्र। इस विशेष पेशकश में हम आपको बताएंगे राष्ट्रीय फिल्म पुरस्कारों से जुड़ी हुई जानकारी को लेकर। और इस वक्त दिल्ली में 66वें राष्ट्रीय फिल्म पुरस्कारों की घोषणा हो रही है। आपको सीधे लिए चलते हैं उस प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में।
मिस्टर राज दत्त, प्लीज सर, प्लीज गिव हिम अ वार्म अप्लॉज प्लीज। मिस्टर सब्यसाची मोहपात्रा, प्लीज। मिस्टर वासु कोहली, प्लीज। मैडम अर्चना आर सिंह, प्लीज। विजया कृष्णन, Mr. Major Ravi, Emo Singh ji, Vinod Ganatra, please. Mr. B.S. Linga Devaru and Ashok Rane Saab. Before we begin the announcements for the various awards, we just wanted to tell you that this is the 66th edition of the National Film Awards. The awards are given in about 31 categories, different categories. In the feature film category, there are 31 categories in the feature film. We received about 419 films this year. And after 45 days of screening by the jury, they arrived at the various awards. And Mr. Rahul Rabel was the person who steered the ship for us. In the non-feature film category, there are about 23 awards. We had about 256 movies which were there, and the screening for these films took about 28 days. And the jury comprised of 7 members. Kanal Saab is right here, and we have introduced him to you. In the category of Best Writing, which Utpal is here, we received a total of 22 books and 19 articles. So that is the list we have. And in this category, which Utpal has headed, there were 3 members. My request to everyone is if you could kindly keep your cell phones on silent mode so that there is no disturbance. There is another award which will be announced today, the award for the most friendly state. The chairperson for that was eminent filmmaker Ramesh Sippy Saab, and he was assisted by Vivek Agnihotri and Shri Uday Singh. So we have an award for that. Now, before we begin, we would be having a presentation. The system that we've adopted to be for everyone's convenience is that the awards would be announced and you could see them on the big screens. You'll be given press releases thereafter, and the whole list would be available to you. Because the list is long, you'll have to kindly bear with us, and we'll try to accommodate everyone's needs as much as possible. So We begin, ladies and gentlemen, with your permission. The first award that we have to announce is the first award, Most Film Friendly State. The Most Film Friendly State award has been given to the state of Uttarakhand. There were about 18 states which had applied, which were in contention, and the eminent jury thought that Uttarakhand is the state which should be given the award, befitting state, Most Film Friendly Award 2018. The award is executed by the Film Facilitation Office, which is under the aegis of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So this will be given when the National Film Awards take place. So ladies and gentlemen, our first award is the award for the most film-friendly state, and that was Uttarakhand. Now, we move on to the list of awards. The first awards that we would go in for also is the best writing on cinema, right? And Utpal, I would request you to make the announcement and the name of the, so there you are, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon. First of all, I thank on behalf of my co-jurors, Mr. Mohan Raman and Yatindra Mishra, I thank the Ministry of Information Broadcasting and Directorate of Film Festivals for giving us this opportunity to do this very important duty. Before I announce the award, I'd just like to mention one small suggestion which we have made to the ministry. That is that as per the regulations right now, only print media entries are allowed for the Best Critic Award. So we have suggested that it should be also expanded to digital media, at least the regular recognized digital media, because most of the serious film writing has now shifted online because of lack of space in print media. So that was our suggestion. Now coming to the awards, the first award I would like to announce is the Best Book on Cinema. The award goes to, it's a Malayalam book. It's called Mona Prathana Pole. It's written by S. Jayachandran Nair, and the publisher is Kerala State Chalachitra Academy. This book is a critical appraisal of the work of the master filmmaker, the late G. Aravindan. Then there is a special mention in this category. This special mention goes to a book called In a Cult of Their Own, Bollywood Beyond Box Office. It's an English book written by Ambarish Roy Chaudhary, and the publisher is Rupa Publications India Private Limited. Now coming to the award for Best Film Critic, this has been shared by two critics, and they are Blaze Johnny from Kerala for his Malayalam articles, for his writings as a critic, and Anand Vijay in Hindi. So these are the awards under our jury. Now I pass on the mic to Mr. Prasad.
Thank you, Utpal. When you get the detailed press release, you would get the citation about the award. You would get what the award carries in terms of the cash prize, etc. So those details are very much there. So in the paucity of time, we just wanted to make the presentation and make sure that we move quick and fast. Can we have now the non-feature film category? And sir, if you could announce them, please.
Thank you very much, DFF and the Ministry of INB, for considering us, for me and my jury members, for this particular activity. Now, the first award is a special mention. Now, please consider that this is a special mention. This means, according to me, it is above everybody else. It is a very special awards. So, the first title is Mahan Hutatmat, Director Sagar Puranik. Glow Worm in Jungle, Director Raman Dumpal. Laddu, Director Sameer Sadhwani and Kishore Sadhwani. Best Narration, Madhubani, The Station of Color. The voices were Deepak Agnihotri and Urvirja Upadhyay. Best Music goes to film Jyoti, Director Kedar Divekar. Best Editing, Sunrise, Hemanti Sarkar. Best Audiography, Children of Soil, Biswadeep Chatterjee. Best Location Sound, The Secret Life of Frog, Ajay Bedi. Best Cinematography, Secret Lives of Frog, Ajay Bedi and Vijay Bedi. Best Director, I Shapath, Gautam Vaze. Best Film or Family Value, Chalo Jeete Hain, directed by Mangesh Hadawade. Best Short Fiction Film, Kasav, directed by Aditya Suhas Jambhale. Social Justice Film, there are two films here. Why Me, directed by Harish Shah, and Ekant, directed by Neeraj Singh. Best Investigation Film, Amoli, directed by Jasmine Kaur Roy and Avinash Roy. Best Sports Film, Swimming Through the Darkness, directed by Supriya Sen. Best Educational Film, Sarlabh Virala, directed by Irgonde. Best Film on Social Issue, Tala Te Kunji, directed by Shilpa Gulati. Best Environmental Film, The World's Most Famous Tiger, directed by Sublaya Nalamutu. Best Promotional Film, Rediscovering Janam, directed by Avinash Maurya or Kirti Gupta. Best Science and Technology Film, G.D. Naidu, The Edison of India, directed by Renijit Kumar. Best Arts and Cultural Film, Bunkar, The Last of Varanasi Weaver, directed by Satyaprakash Upadhyay. Best Debut Non-Feature Film of a Director, Faluda, 50 Years Ray's Detective, directed by Sagini Chatterjee. Best Non-Feature Film, Sunrise, directed by Vibha Bakshi. And it is shared by The Secret Life of Frog, directed by Ajay and Vijay Bedi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Saab. That was quick and fast. So we've covered two categories of the juries, non-feature and the best writing in cinema. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the feature films, the different categories, and I would request the Chairperson Rahul Ravilji to announce their votes.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Honorable Minister of Information Broadcasting, the Secretary, Mr. Khare, Mr. Chaitanya Prasad from DFF, the other members of DFF, for giving us the opportunity of being here. I'd also like to put on record is the August company of 10 other filmmakers who have formed the central panel of the jury and are sitting right here. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be working with them. And we've all strived to achieve a result which comes to being the best of the various films we saw. And it's a unanimous, conscientious decision taken by the entire jury. So I'll go through the list over here. I'm starting with, there are four actors who have been awarded a special mention, right? This is a special mention for the kind of performance and the kind of efforts they put into the film. The first is a film called Nachi Charmi, where the actress Shruti Hariharan, for her complex portrayal of a new age woman has been portrayed brilliantly by her. After that is Mr. Chandrachud Rai in a film called Kadak, where it's not a role which you'd say is very long. It's something which is a very short thing but leaves a tremendous impact. The third is Jojo George in a film called Joseph, a Malayalam film, where he is portraying a vigilante in the human organ racket, which is very prevalent. And the fourth is a lady called Savitri, who in a film called Sudani from Nigeria, and plays a mother, and the emotional mother, which don't see boundaries of caste, creed, and space, but traverse the entire world. So these are 4 special mentions given here. Now coming to the awards in each language. All right. We start with scheduled language. The best Rajasthani film is a film called Turtle, produced by Shivaza Films Entertainment, directed by Dinesh Yadav. There is then a film in Panchenga language. So the best Panchenga film is In the Land of Poisonous Women, produced by Ars Productions, directed by Manju Bora. And the film is a depiction of an individual effort to break the myth of poisoned women in a remote area of Andhra Pradesh. Sorry, Arunachal Pradesh, my fault. All right. Then there is the best Shaidu Kapan film. These are all dialects which are, people are really making an effort to make films there. It goes to a film called Mishing. Not Missing, it's Mishing. And it's produced by 88 Entertainment, directed by Bobby Sarma Barua. And the film exposes the alternate reality of a remote village in Arunachal Pradesh. The best Garo film goes to Mama, produced by Anna Films, directed by Dominic Sangma, and the film follows an old man's relentless quest for a reunion with his dead wife. These are films which are in the dialects there. Now, in the scheduled language, there was a film which we already announced was the Rajasthani film called Turtle, which should have been up here, but in any case, that's the film there. Now, the other one's the best Marathi film. Goes to a film called Bhonga. Bhonga has been produced by Naini Productions and directed by Shivaji Lotan Patil. It's a film which is on the spirituality and a mindless revolution, rituals and revolution between communities, which is explored in a very brilliant manner in this film. Then there's the best Tamil film, which goes to a film called Baram, produced by Reckless Roses, directed by Priya Krishnaswamy. It's a man's fight to expose the traditional practice of euthanasia in a Tamil village. So these topics that they've been using are really contemporary and prevalent all over society. Then you have the best Hindi film. The best Hindi film goes to a film called Andhadhun, which is produced by Matchbox Pictures and directed by Sriram Raghavan. It is a judicious mix of intrigue and creativity. The best Urdu film goes to a film called Hamid, produced by Saregama, directed by Ejaz Khan, and it's a child's perspective of religion and a search for his lost father. Best Bengali film goes to a film called Ek Jo Chile Raja, produced by SVF Entertainment, directed by Sajid Mukherjee. It's based on a true story that traces the identity of a Maharaja through his quest for proving his identity. That's Ek Jo Chile Raja. Best Malayalam film goes to Sudani from Nigeria. Its producer is Happy Hours Entertainment. Director is Zakaria. It's in the background of sports. The film explores the complexity of emotions in a mother-son relationship. The best Telugu film goes to Mahanati, produced by Swapna Cinema, directed by Nag Ashwin, and it's a biopic of the great Telugu actress, told very, very effectively. Then the best Kannada film goes to Nachi Charami, produced by Tejaswini Enterprises, directed by Manju Nath. And it's a very poignant, sensitive, modern-day woman's look at the conflict between norms and values. The best Konkani film goes to a film called Amori. Amori is produced by Opus Gala and directed by Dinesh Bhosle, and it's an individual's effort and struggle to correct and overcome a past event. Then the best Assamese film is Bulbul Can Sing, which is produced by Flying River Films and directed by Rima Das. It's for capturing the trials and tribulations of a group of teenagers in a rural Assamese background. The best Punjabi film goes to a film called Harjita, which has been produced by Sizzling Productions, directed by Vijay Kumar Arora, and it's a biopic of a hockey player who struggles through his rural background and poverty to rise to the top of the game. The best Gujarati film goes to a film called Reva. Reva has been produced by Brainbox Studios. Directors are Rahul Surendrabhai Bhole and Vineet Kumar Ambubai Kanodia. It's the transformation of material to spiritual journey in an NRI. These, I think, conclude the awards for the films in all the various languages. Now we come to the next set of awards. We start with the best action. This goes to a film, a Kannada film called KGF. KGF is, the action directors are Vikram More and Ambu Ariv. It's a monochromatic, visceral display of power struggle. Then we come to best choreography. The best choreography award goes to Padmavat, and the choreographers are Kruti Mahesh Madhava and Jyoti Tamar, and the song for which I get the best choreography award is a song called Gumar, and it's an exquisite delight and very Indian in the way it's been depicted. Then we have the best special effects. This award has been shared. Best special effects have been shared between two films. One is a Telugu film called Awe. That's A-W-E, Awe. And the other one is KGF. Awe is Shrishti Creative Studios and KGF is Unfit Media for the is for conduction of multiple stories, or of multiple stories in a visually very effective manner. It's a complex of multiple stories done together, and the award for KGF specifics goes for the film successfully and convincingly creates an era of a rough neighborhood during the 80s, where a lot of work has been really gone into the special effects to create that atmosphere. In here, the best sound. In sound, there are three categories over here. There is location sound. It's missing. Oh, sorry, I missed a page there. There is best lyrics, which is to the Kannada film Nati Charami. Lyricist is Manjuta, and the song is Mai Vi Manave. It's a revolutionary thought of the innermost feelings of a young woman who is ready to break all the shackles that society has imposed upon women. The best music director goes, music direction goes to Padmavat and is again shared. Best music direction goes to Sanjay Leela Bansali for Padmavat, where all the songs are of a different kind, a different genre, all mixed into this wonderful film which he made. We have the best background music award, which goes to Uri as the best background music award, and the music has been given by Shashwat Satya, and the background music excels in providing the right atmosphere for the film. All right. Then the best makeup artist that we have here. Pardon?
No, that's all right.
No, that's all. So, yeah.
Yeah, up and
Yeah, the best makeup artist goes to the Telugu film Awe. And the makeup artist is Ranjit. And the texture he has brought out on every personality is absolutely brilliant. That's where he scores. The best costume designer goes to the Telugu film Mahanati. The costume designer is Indrakshi Patnaik, Gaurang Shah, and Archana Rao. The best costume goes not for an opulent costume drama, which has all the opulence in it, but goes for the evolution of costumes in the Telugu film industry with the character. It's a biopic. So from her childhood till her death. So it spans a large era, and the costumes tell a lot in that. That's where the award goes. The best production design goes to Kamara Sambhavam, Malayalam film. The production designer is Bangalam. And it goes for the way he's prepared relevant terrains and sets of different periods and cultures through the making of the film. Then we have the best editing, which goes to the Telugu film, the Kannada film, Nati Charami again. The editor is Nagendra Ujani. It's the smooth way in which the smooth transaction of different characters is in a hallmark, in a way in which they've been brought about. Yeah, I put here. Yeah. Okay. Then we come to the best audiography, which is sound, which has three sections in it. So, the first section is location sound recordist, which goes to the Marathi film Tendliya. It's for the sound recorded on location, and Gaurav Verma is a recordist, and it's for him capturing the mood of the small village in a live sound recording. So it's not, sounds which have been created and added. It's within that. He's done this. Then there is the sound designer. The best sound designer is for Uri, the surgical strike. That is Vishwadip Deepak Chatterjee. It is for the crafting of these sounds and the way they've been placed in the entire film to create and enhance the whole effect of that wonderful film. Then there is the mixed track which goes to Rangasthalam, Telugu film. The recordist is Raja Krishna, MP, and his whole playing with the beauty and essence and tonal quality of silence in parts of the film. That is done very, very well there. Now in screenplay, again we have three categories. We have the screenplay writer for original screenplay. This goes to a Telugu film called Chi Arjun La So. It's a Telugu film and it is a modern take on arranged marriage. It's a modern take on arranged marriage and it's a very beautiful script. The way it's been written, the humor created. Then there is the screenplay writer for adapted screenplay. Adapted is where the source is a book or some written literary work. That award goes to Andhadhun. Andhadhun, the adapted screenplay. The writers are Sriram Raghavan, Arijit Biswas, Yogesh Chandrekar, Hemant Rao, and Pooja Ladda Surti. Okay? It's crisp, it's intriguing, and keeps you on tenterhooks when you watch the whole film. Then there is the dialogue. It's the third part in the screenplay, is the dialogue. That award goes to a Bengali film called Tariq. And it's written by Chunni Ganguly. And it's the meaningful conversation the characters have in the film, which explores the interpersonal relationships of all the characters, is what really brought us to this conclusion. The best cinematography goes to a Malayalam film called Ulu. The DOP was the late M.G. Radhakrishnan, who has been a multiple award winner in his time. And the landscapes and the textures which he's brought alive have given a huge sense of beauty and grace to this wonderful film again. The best female playback singer goes to Nathi Charami from Kannada, to Bindu Malini for the song Maya Vi Manave. It's for a rendering and of a haunting melody and the way the tones, a tone of singing and the way she's done it scores in a big way. The best male playback singer goes to Padmavat. It goes to Arijit Singh for his song Binte Dil as the male playback singer, and it's for his, again, his tonal quality of his voice and his blend of emotion which comes across very strong in the song. Now we come to a shared award. This is one shared award, which is the best child artist. Is the best child artist. Now, children play a very important hand in films, and it really becomes quite a task to decide which child is good and who's not good. They're all very, very good. But we had to pick one. So we didn't pick one, we picked 4. There are 4 children who shared the Best Child Actors Award. And it was a very difficult decision of the jury to even try and break this 4 down into 3 or 2 or 1, but we gave up. and we said it wouldn't be fair on the other children. The names are Ondala Eradalu, a Kannada film. The child is P.V. Rohit. He goes through impishly maneuvering the entire events while staying focused on his character. These are difficult things to perform. The second child is from the film Harjita. It is Sameep Singh. He portrays the struggle of the hockey player who intends to become a hockey player, which the film is a biopic about, and he's played the childhood. Very, very natural performance. Then there is Hamid. Hamid Tala Arshad Reshu is depicting a range of emotions in a troubled area and his quest for finding his father. The fourth child is from Marathi film called Nal. Srinivas Pokale, he goes through the complicated emotions of a child, the love and by his conflict between a foster mother and his real mother. So it's his kind of conflict on that. These four children have really done a it's a commendable job. So we decided to give all four the award. There's a Best Supporting Actress after this, which is, I think a lot of you would have smiles on your faces, is Badhai Ho, the Hindi film Badhai Ho, with Surekha Sikri. You know, the matriarch of an Indian household, and a great modern attitude in that. She gets the award for Best Supporting Actress. Best Supporting Actor goes to a Marathi film called Chumbak, where the actor is Swanand Kirkire, who is actually a lyric writer, if I'm not mistaken. He's a lyric writer who has acted in this and acted brilliantly. And his ability to invoke the empathy within the audience is a treat to watch.
और इस वक्त दिल्ली में ही विदेश मंत्रालय की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस चल रही है, आपको सीधे लिए चलते हैं.
Justification for cross-border terrorism. They will not be able to incite separatist activities. They will not be able to support terrorism. They will not be able to mislead people. We also mentioned that all developments pertaining to Article 370, they are entirely the internal affairs of India. It relates to the Constitution of India, which is a sovereign matter. And therefore, we want Pakistan to understand the decisions which they have announced in the light of, the points which I have mentioned. Now, specifically on the reactions, reactions have come from few countries, and it will be difficult for me to kind of go individually into each and every reaction. I think it is clear that the attempt by Pakistan to present an alarming picture of the situation of the bilateral relationship and also linking unrelated issues into the sovereign matter of India has not succeeded anywhere. We have briefed a number of foreign governments and international organizations. We have explained our position in this matter. And we have told them that, look, Constitution is a sovereign jurisdiction. We have told them that whatever we have done is something which completely relates to the internal affairs of India. Prime Minister has very clearly articulated the vision of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh in his address yesterday. We strongly feel that now there will be opportunities available for development, which was earlier denied by a temporary provision in the Constitution, and I think it is very important to highlight that it was only a temporary provision. As I mentioned, that it will strengthen democratic forces on the ground, and it will encourage tourism activity and many other steps, many other positives which will come out from the measures which has been taken. We feel that the steps have been taken, keeping in mind the bright future of the people of Jammu and Kashmir in mind. On the UNSC, you asked that Pakistan has taken this matter to the UNSC. You see, our strategy is not something which we will spell it here. Our views are very clear, and as I mentioned that we have articulated those views to all the international organizations as well, that whatever steps we have taken in relation to Article 370 is our matter, is an internal matter. Matters related to the Constitution of India is under our sovereign jurisdiction. And this is something which I'm sure has been properly explained to these organizations. But beyond that, as and when Pakistan decides to internationalize it, we will see what steps are to be taken. I don't think this is the appropriate forum for me to get into our strategy on what is to be done. On airspace, my understanding is that there was a clarification yesterday that the airspace has not been closed. There has been some rerouting which has been done, but airspace, it remains open. On Samjhauta Express, which has been stopped, again it is important to understand that this is a unilateral decision. We never asked for the stoppage, and again we regret the decision by Pakistan government to stop this link between the two countries. It is unfortunate, and again this is intended to feed the same narrative that the relations between India and Pakistan has reached an alarming state. So this is something which I had to say. On the communications part, I think it was asked by you. You see, we are all aware that certain precautionary measures have been taken by the concerned authorities to maintain law and order. Prime Minister in his address yesterday mentioned that the situation will gradually return to normal, and inconvenience expressed by people in Jammu and Kashmir is very temporary in nature. We already see a sense of calm and normalcy. All newspapers are being published without any disruption. There has been no incident of violence. Food supply have not been affected. Hospitals are operating normally. And as and when we get some update, I think I shall keep all of you posted. At what level it was taken up with the US, I think somebody asked. You see, since the steps were announced, we have reached out to all the countries. And as I said, that we have explained our position. You are aware that the senior officials of the government of India here in Delhi, they reached out to the ambassadors and envoys and explained our position. The same was done by our envoys, our ambassadors and high commissioners in different capitals of the world. And there have been certain contacts being made at the level of External Affairs Minister as well. It may not be appropriate to kind of get into specifics as to which all calls were made by whom, but I think it is important to understand that we did reach out to all the countries and all the multilateral organizations in this regard. On the statement by Taliban, I think the reaction is the same. I would not like to react to individual statements, but it is clear it is clear that, you know, I mean, what they tried to kind of project, that there is a linkage between what has happened here and something which is completely unrelated. I think this is not something which has worked. I think that is very evident. It is time for Pakistan, frankly, to accept the reality and stop interfering in internal affairs of other countries. On the review of bilateral arrangements, Reza, you see, it is difficult. As I mentioned, that since the steps being announced are unilateral, we don't know. We don't know. We do hope that Pakistan reconsiders the decision. We do hope that they kind of address the core issues, the main issues. But I am unable to kind of speculate or confirm what all would be covered as part of review of bilateral arrangements. We can only urge them to reconsider those steps which they have announced. I think I have answered all the questions. You know, frankly, I have not seen this specific statement. You know, I mean, I'll have to just go through it and then I'll come back to you. Ji, Sanjeev. नहीं, वो तो जैसा मैंने कहा कि मेरे लिए सबका एक अलग से जवाब देना मुश्किल होगा, बट जो हमारा मुद्दा है हमने सबको बता दिया है. हमने बता दिया है कि हमारा पोजीशन क्या है, कि ये जो आर्टिकल 370 को लेकर हुआ वो हमारा आंतरिक मामला है और जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में चेंजेस है वो हमारा सॉवरेन राइट है.
रवीश जी, मेरा सवाल स्पेसिफिक तौर पर कुलभूषण जाधव मामले को लेकर है. क्या इस मामले में जो कम्युनिकेशन था हमारा वो टूट गया है, और क्या इसका दुष्प्रभाव इस पूरे प्रोसेस पर पड़ेगा जो कॉन्सुलर एक्सेस का मामला था?
देखिए, आपको पता है कि पाकिस्तान से हमने कहा था, जो मैंने पिछली बार बताया भी था, कि पाकिस्तान बिना किसी रोक टोक के, जो हमने कहा था अनइम्पीडेड कॉन्सुलर एक्सेस श्री जाधव को दे, जो आईसीजे इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस के कंप्लायंस में होगा. हम उनसे लगातार बातचीत कर रहे हैं, हमारे डिप्लोमेटिक चैनल्स ओपन हैं. तो ये मैं, जो आपका कहना है कि बंद हो गया है, ये मैं नहीं मानूंगा. और अगर इस पर कोई डेवलपमेंट होती है इस पर आगे, तो हम आपको बताते रहेंगे. लेकिन मैं इतना कहना चाहूँगा कि इस मामले पे, जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा था, कि मैं इस फोरम के जरिए नहीं जाऊँगा. जो भी इस मामले में हमारी बातचीत होगी, जो हमारे इस मामले में डिस्कशन होगा, वो डिप्लोमेटिक चैनल्स के थ्रू ही होगा और इस प्लेटफॉर्म के थ्रू नहीं होगा. जी, ब्रह्म प्रकाश.
रवीश जी, पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर से कुछ तस्वीरें सामने आई हैं जहां पर पाकिस्तान सरकार के खिलाफ विरोध प्रदर्शन कर रहे हैं कश्मीरी लोग. तो पाकिस्तान अगर कश्मीर के धारा 370 के मसले को यूएन पर उठाता है, तो क्या भारत पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर के उन कश्मीरियों का मुद्दा उठाएगा? क्योंकि गृहमंत्री संसद में कह चुके हैं कि पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर अभिन्न अंग है भारत का, और उनके लोगों की बात भी भारत उठाएगा. तो क्या यूएन के मंच पर भी उन लोगों की भारत उठाएगा?
देखिए, ये स्पेकुलेटिव हो गया कि हम क्या करेंगे यूएन में. मैंने पहले भी कहा है कि वो स्ट्रेटजी में डिस्कस नहीं करूंगा. लेकिन जो दूसरा आपका खंड है कि पाकिस्तान ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर, वो भारत का अंग है, वो तो हमने कहा भी है, हमारे होम मिनिस्टर ने भी पार्लियामेंट में कहा है. तो उसको मैं क्वालिफाई नहीं करना चाहूँगा उस कमेंट को. लेकिन स्ट्रेटजी क्या होगी, किस ढंग से होगी? जी,
जिन लोगों को वहां टॉर्चर किया जा रहा है पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर में, उन्होंने विरोध प्रदर्शन किया है पाक ऑक्युपाइड,
मैं समझ गया आपका कहना है
सरकार के खिलाफ, तो उनका मामला क्या उठाएंगे?
मैं वही बता रहा हूँ ना, कि आपने कहा कि उसके रिएक्शन में क्या हम ये उठाएंगे. यही मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि जो स्ट्रेटजी होगा वो ऐसे पब्लिकली शेयर नहीं करते हैं. लेकिन इतना आप जान के रखिए कि जो हमारी स्ट्रेटजी होगी बहुत ही मजबूत होगी. और मुझे नहीं लगता कि पाकिस्तान के पास ऐसा कोई ग्राउंड है जिसके तहत वो जो हमारा आंतरिक मामला है, जो हमारा सॉवरेन राइट है, उस मामले को वहाँ पर वो उठा सके. तो जैसे होगा, और ये स्पेकुलेटिव है, देखते हैं किस ढंग से आता है और क्या करते हैं वो. या श्रीधर एंड देन मानस.
So could you tell us something specifically about the engagement that we have had with the Islamic countries? Because we have seen that in the 1990s, there used to be severe condemnations of India's stand on Kashmir by the Islamic world. But somehow it has not happened this time. The reaction has been very muted. So is it, what has changed? Is it because that we have quietly engaging with the OIC member countries? Could you tell us something about this?
You see, Sridhar, I think it is visible to all of us that in the last 5 years or in recent years, I think there have been greater engagement, a very enhanced engagement with the Islamic world. Prime Minister had himself, he has led this engagement. He has visited several countries in the region. We have also had several high-level incoming visits. The relationship has blossomed. It has become multidimensional. It has moved away from the diaspora-centric relationship to trade and investment, to energy security, to defense, etc. So that is one aspect. The second aspect is the greater understanding by these countries about our position. You see, I think, and not only the Islamic world, not only this bloc, but generally, I think there has been a greater appreciation of the position. There has also been a greater understanding that the rhetoric of Pakistan is something which has been seen through. They stand exposed on many counts. And third, when we have said that these are internal matters related to India, these are sovereign rights, especially the constitution part, I think that is something which they have understood. So I think it is a combination of factors. But yes, I think we do have a very, very good close partnership with all the Islamic countries at this point of time. Manas. Maybe I'll take another round of, are we done with questions related to Article 370 and can we move on? Okay.
So Pakistan has been making a lot of wild allegations the last few days, and latest is that in fact Imran Khan has accused India of whipping up warlike situation in J&K basically, and he says that India may stage a false flag operation to further deteriorate the situation. So how do you respond to these serious allegations that India is trying to create a warlike situation?
Sachin.
So is there anything you would like to say on the reorganization of J&K given China's reaction to what happened? The Home Minister has said in Parliament that when he mentions J&K, he actually means not just POK but also Aksai Chain. So is that our official position? Thanks.
Ritul. Qureshi? Oh, okay. Akhilesh ji ko dijiye.
Sir, my question is also related to Sachin's question because India and China are having a structured dialogue on border issues, and in between Home Minister told about Aksai Chin. So are you going to raise Aksai Chin issue in a different way, in a new way, or will be the continuation of the old talks that are going on?
Good.
And other than that,
एक ही सवाल पूछे ना.
नहीं सर, थोड़ा सा जुड़ा हुआ है, because Pakistan has written letter to Security Council. So do you think that it is a matter related to Security Council consideration?
नहीं, वो तो अखिलेश जी उसका जवाब मैंने दे दिया है. जी इधर दे दो.
सर, जब आप कहते हैं कि दोनों कंट्री की
मैंने नहीं कहा पहुंच चुकी है. मैंने ये कहा कि पाकिस्तान ये कह रहा है, पाकिस्तान ये प्रोजेक्ट करना चाह रहा है कि हम दोनों का रिश्ता एक अलार्मिंग स्टेट में पहुंच चुका है. हमने कहा है हम ये नहीं मानते हैं. ये आपने गलत समझा. जी, पाकिस्तान से रिलेटेड है. रंजीत जी.
Any update on Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan?
ओके. जी उधर अभिषेक को दीजिए.
We have seen of late, last 48 hours, a lot of information warfare going on from the Pakistani side, specifically on social media websites, including by their ministers. So A, are you going to take it up with them? B, are you going to take it up with these social media platforms? Because it's directly affecting Kashmir situation, because some of those videos and information is incendiary.
Thank you. इधर दीजिए.
सर, आपने कहा कि पाकिस्तान एक अलार्मिंग पिक्चर पोर्ट्रे करना चाह रहा है, और इसी में हमने देखा कि वहाँ पर काफ़ी ज़्यादा वाइल्ड कमेंट्स और जो सोशल मीडिया काफ़ी ज़्यादा एक्टिव है. तो ऐसे में क्या हम वहाँ जो हमारे जो हाई कमीशन के स्टाफ हैं, उनकी सिक्योरिटी का इशू हमने पाकिस्तान के सरकार के साथ उठाया है, या इसको लेके कोई बात हुई है?
Okay, I think maybe I'll just take these questions and move on, hopefully, to another topic. On Pakistan? J&K. Now I'll come back again. I think if
there is big concern in Nepal regarding the Nepalese who are working there in Jammu and Kashmir. You have any information regarding their, what's the situation of the Nepalese who have been working as a seasonal worker there in, because all the situation is almost a lockdown.
Nepalese workers working?
Yeah, as a seasonal worker there.
In J&K.
Yeah, and is the Indian government has conveyed any message to the Nepal government regarding on these issues?
Thank you. Maybe I'll just take the last one before moving on to the next.
China's reaction and how India is going to react to that. And secondly, the Prime Minister yesterday said that there would be a relaxation of movement restrictions on Kashmir. So considering that, especially for Eid, so what kind of movement restrictions what kind of relaxation are we going to see? Are we seeing curfew lifted there?
You see, on the questions related to China, Sachin and Akhilesh, I think we have already issued our statement, and there is nothing further to add. I would just like to say that China is a very important partner. There are many channels available to us to discuss all bilateral issues. You are aware that External Affairs Minister is visiting China for the second meeting of India-China high-level mechanism on cultural and people-to-people exchanges. It is expected that bilateral issues will come up for discussion. We will discuss the forthcoming informal summit of the Chinese president. We will also discuss steps on how to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. So there's nothing new which I have to add on that. On Ritul, you mentioned about Shah Mahmood Qureishi's visit to China. You see, I think it's a bilateral visit. Each country is... Yeah, but you see, China, we have seen, and all of us, we have seen the statement made by China in this matter. So that stands, and it has not changed. On Indian High Commissioner's return, I can only confirm to you that he is not yet in Delhi. And, as an... No, I can only tell you that he is not in Delhi. He is not in Delhi. And, no, I think we will see. I think and timing of return is yet to be decided. As you are aware that we have requested for a review of the decision. So I think there are some speculations in the media that he is already back. So I thought it is important for me to mention that he is not in Delhi. And his timing of when he is going to return is going to be determined. On the information warfare, perhaps a generation of people in that country, they have been fed up on a certain narrative, and that narrative is supported sometimes by the official propaganda machine. My sense is that on many counts, I think people see through those designs. They do see through, and that this is a machine, a propaganda which is under progress. Frankly, I would trust the statement, the speech, and the points highlighted by my Prime Minister publicly, which is very positive, which has a vision, which is full of hope, than the propaganda which tries to paint a doomsday picture about the situation. in what is going to happen, speculative, as if predicting that what will happen in the future. I would definitely go by something which is more hopeful and more positive, and which is based on facts, than something which is kind of based on unsubstantiated facts and figures here and there. Yeah, I mean, we will see. I think we will see if there are handles which are pushing out a narrative which is incendiary, which is promoting violence. Then I think that is something which definitely we will take into account. And no. I mean, that again brings me to the original point, that from their side they would like to project a panic situation. They would like to project a warlike situation, and that is why we don't feel that it is that is the case. And I think neither the international community feels that there is a warlike situation which exists. So it is a kind of a definite ploy to kind of deflect the attention in a different manner. I think it is time for Pakistan now to just see the new reality and stop interfering in what happens in a neighboring country. Yes, I think we have taken it up. We have taken up the matter with Pakistan. We did tell them that the adequate security should be provided to us, and that is what I know. नहीं तो जवाब मेरा वही होगा कि हम तो रिग्रेट ही करेंगे, ये सब यूनिलैटरल डिसीजन है उनका, हम उनसे गुजारिश ही करेंगे कि ये सारे स्टेप्स आप न लें. अब उसके अलावा अगर उनको करना है तो कोई रोक नहीं सकता उनको. We have, sorry, I mean, I'll have to cut it short here. No, I mean, look, the safety of the people who are in Jammu and Kashmir, I think that is the responsibility of the state government, and they are being looked after well. As I mentioned, that calm and normalcy has returned. There is no shortage of food. So, but I have not got any feedback specifically for the citizens of Nepal. That I'll perhaps find out and see if I can get back to you. Thank you very much. Foreign Secretary's, pardon? Yeah, I mean, look, I can't really predict. I can't really predict. I am going by what my Prime Minister has said. He has said that conditions will be relaxed. The people of Jammu and Kashmir will be able to celebrate Eid. So I am taking inference from there, and I am sharing whatever I have to. But you see, it all depends on how the law and order situation evolves. We remain very hopeful, very positive. And let's see where we go from here. Thank you very much. I'll be back with the Foreign Secretary. He will brief you on Prime Minister's visit to Bhutan in a short while from now. Thank you very much.
तो आप ये तस्वीरें देख रहे थे दिल्ली से, जहां पर विदेश मंत्रालय के प्रवक्ता रवीश कुमार प्रेस को संबोधित कर रहे थे. एक बार फिर से भारत ने स्पष्ट कर दिया है कि भारत के आंतरिक मामलों में पाकिस्तान दखल ना दे. ये भारत के आंतरिक मामले हैं, जम्मू कश्मीर से जुड़े हुए जो फैसले लिए गए हैं उसमें पाकिस्तान दखल ना दे, और जो कुछ भी एक तरफा फैसले पाकिस्तान ले रहा है उसकी वो समीक्षा करे, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान इस प्रकार की कोशिश कर रहा है, एक ऐसी तस्वीर पेश करने की कोशिश कर रहा है जिससे दुनिया को ये मैसेज जाए कि भारत और पाकिस्तान के जो द्विपक्षीय संबंध है उसमें एक प्रकार के एक अलार्मिंग सिचुएशन आ गई है, जबकि भारत इस बात से साफ तौर पर इनकार कर रहा है. ऐसी कोई स्थिति नहीं है. भारत ने अपने अधिकार क्षेत्र में अपने संविधान के तहत ही कुछ फैसले लिए हैं जिसका पाकिस्तान से कुछ भी लेना देना नहीं, और पाकिस्तान बेवजह जाया ही अपने तरीके से एक तरफा कई फैसले ले रहा है, चाहे वो जो राजनयिक स्तर पे उसको कमतर करने की बात हो, व्यापार को कम करने की बात हो, या अन्य प्रकार के जो फैसले हों. भारत ने साफ तौर पर विस्तार से, रवीश कुमार ने इस बात को स्पष्ट कर दिया है कि पाकिस्तान एक कोशिश कर रहा है दुनिया को गलत तस्वीर पेश करने के लिए, जो कि उसकी एक सोची समझी रणनीति का हिस्सा है. लेकिन भारत इस बात को समझता है, और ये बात भारत स्पष्टता के साथ कह रहा है, ऐसी कोई भी स्थिति नहीं है जो एक अलार्मिंग सिचुएशन जैसी स्थिति को कहे कि भारत और पाकिस्तान के बीच में ऐसी कोई स्थिति है, जबकि वो स्थिति से, यानी कि जमीन की सच्चाई से काफी अलग है. और भारत ने अपने भूभाग में, अपने अधिकार क्षेत्र में, अपने संविधान के तहत ही फैसले लिए हैं जम्मू कश्मीर को लेकर, और इस प्रकार की स्थिति को करना या इस प्रकार की स्थिति को सामने रखना पाकिस्तान की सोची समझी रणनीति है. कई प्रकार के सवाल किए गए. इस सवाल ये भी आया कि आखिर जो भारत के उच्चायुक्त हैं पाकिस्तान में वो इस वक्त कहाँ हैं, तो साफ तौर पे भारत की ओर से ये रिएक्शन आया था कि आखिर जब हमने उनको समीक्षा करने को पाकिस्तान के लिए बोला है तो फिलहाल वो इस वक्त दिल्ली में नहीं है. यानी कि संभावना है, भारत जिस बात को लगातार पाकिस्तान से कह रहा है कि आप ज़ाया ही इस प्रकार के एक तरफा कड़े फैसले लेने की बात कर रहे हैं, वो गैर वाजिब हैं, आप उसकी समीक्षा कीजिए और आपको इस प्रकार के फैसलों को पुनर्समीक्षा करने की ज़रूरत है। तो बेहद महत्वपूर्ण पाकिस्तान के लगातार जो कारगुजारियाँ हैं, जो पाकिस्तान के एक तरफा फैसले हैं, उस पर भारत लगातार स्पष्टता के साथ में बीते समय से और आज एक बार फिर से ये बात साफ तौर पर कही है। तो ये अपने आप में दर्शाता है कि किस तरीके से पाकिस्तान के द्वारा किए जा रहे हथकंडों को अपनाने के जो कोशिश की जा रही है, उससे भारत कहीं भी डगमगाने वाला नहीं है। इस खबर पे तमाम अन्य पहलुओं पे हम लगातार आपको रूबरू कराते रहेंगे, लेकिन हम कुछ और खबर भी आपको दिखाते हैं। जम्मू कश्मीर से आर्टिकल 370 हटाए जाने के बाद कठुआ और सांबा में हालात अब सामान्य होते नजर आ रहे हैं। स्कूल कॉलेज दोबारा खुलने लगे हैं। सांबा और कठुआ में गुरुवार को ही प्रशासन ने आदेश जारी करके स्कूल और कॉलेज खोलने के आदेश दिए थे, जिसके बाद आज से जिले के कई स्कूल कॉलेज से ताले हटा दिए गए हैं और छात्रों की आवाजाही शुरू हो गई है। स्कूल खुलने से बच्चे काफ़ी खुश नजर आ रहे हैं। वे एक बार फिर से बस्ता उठाकर स्कूल और कॉलेज जाते पढ़ने के लिए अपने आप को खुश महसूस कर रहे हैं। और अभिषेक झा हमारे सहयोगी इस वक्त हमारे साथ में जुड़ गए हैं, जो कि प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई थी अभी विदेश मंत्रालय के प्रवक्ता रवीश कुमार के द्वारा, उस पर अधिक बातचीत करने के लिए। अभिषेक, एक तरीके से भारत ने फिर से पाकिस्तान को साफ कर दिया है कि आप जो जाया कोशिश कर रहे हैं उसका कुछ हासिल होने वाला नहीं है।
बिल्कुल, और जिस प्रकार से विदेश मंत्रालय के प्रवक्ता ने कहा कि ये पूरा का पूरा भारत का मसला है और भारत ने अपने अधिकार क्षेत्र का इस्तेमाल करते हुए किसी कानून को बनाया है, और साथ ही उन्होंने इस बात को भी स्पष्ट कर दिया कि विभिन्न देशों से जो भी प्रतिक्रियाएं आ रही हों, लेकिन भारत ने अभी अपने सभी देशों को, जो सहयोगी देश है, जो मित्र देश हैं और जहां भी भारत के डिप्लोमेटिक मिशन हैं, उन्होंने अपना पक्ष हर देश के सामने रख दिया है कि ये जो कश्मीर पर जो भी कानून बने हैं वो भारत के संविधान के तहत बने हैं, भारत के पूरे प्रावधानों के अनुरूप बने हैं और इसमें किसी भी प्रकार का कोई भी जो बाहरी दखल है उसकी कोई आवश्यकता नहीं है। तो ये भारत का स्टैंड है।
अभिषेक, मैं आपको रोकूंगा। इस वक्त विदेश सचिव प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की जो भूटान यात्रा उसको लेकर प्रेस को संबोधित कर रहे हैं।
Prime Minister of Bhutan took office, Dr. Lote Tshering. He too made India his first destination. Last year was also the golden jubilee of our bilateral relationship, and this year, immediately on assumption of office, the new External Affairs Minister also made Bhutan his first destination. So, in sum, I think this government attaches importance to its relationship with Bhutan and has demonstrated this through the political exchanges it has engaged in with Bhutan. I would run you over the main elements of the Prime Minister's program. As soon as he arrives in Paro Airport, he will first visit Semthoka Dzong. This is one of Bhutan's oldest dzongs, and it is the location of the statue of the Shabdrung, the spiritual leader of Bhutan and the founder of modern Bhutan. This is a statue which has been loaned by India to the royal government of Bhutan and greatly appreciated and greatly visited by the people of Bhutan. Thereafter, His Majesty the King will give an audience to the Prime Minister, and subsequently there will be the official talks with Prime Minister Dr. Lote Tshering, followed by the signing of MOUs, and I will give some detail on that later, as well as the dedication of a number of projects that have been undertaken with Bhutan in the last year or so. And again, I will share some details of that later. He will call on the leader of the opposition, Dr. Pema Gyamtso. He will also call on His Majesty the fourth King of Bhutan, and subsequently there will be an official banquet that night by the Prime Minister of Bhutan. On the subsequent forenoon of the 18th, there will be 3 engagements. The first will be an address at the Royal University of Bhutan. This Royal University of Bhutan is in fact Bhutan's main university. It has about 11 affiliated colleges and close to 10,000 students. So he will be addressing the students at the Royal University of Bhutan. Then he visits their national monument. And finally, the visit ends with a lunch by Their Majesties the King and Queen of Bhutan for the Prime Minister. So that in a nutshell is the program. Our relationship with Bhutan, as you know, is been predicated for a long time on hydropower being the basis of the relationship and on the support that we give as a development partner to Bhutan. So in December, when Dr. Lote had come, we had made the commitment to give 5,000 crores to Bhutan as development assistance, which were for the 12th five-year plan, which began earlier this year, which is roughly the same commitment we made at the last five-year plan, the 11th five-year plan. The 11th five-year plan was a plan where we were able to achieve 100% dispersal of the amount that we had committed. 65 major projects, close to 600 high-impact community development projects, and the government, the Royal Government of Bhutan specifically appreciated the fact that we had made significant efforts to ensure 100% dispersal of funds. So this time too, this is our target, and we have already released the first tranche of funds for the 12th five-year plan. We are also Bhutan's largest trading partner, about 9,200 crores of rupees. And what we have done this time, in addition to the plan assistance that we give Bhutan, is to allocate 400 crores for what we call the trade support facility. This is a special package that we intend to give Bhutan to encourage Bhutanese exporters to export more to India. Because our objective is to diversify the relationship from simply being based on hydropower cooperation to other areas where we want to cooperate or collaborate with Bhutan. So this is a special focus and a special package being given in this five-year plan only as trade support for companies and producers and manufacturers to incentivize them to export more to India. The highlight of the visit, of course, is the inauguration or the formal inauguration of the Mangdechu hydroelectric power project. 720 megawatts, 4 units, 3 of which have already been commissioned at a cost of about 5,012 crores. It is actually the most cost-effective hydro project in South Asia. It's on 70% loan and 30% grant. And we will also be signing the Mangdechu hydroelectric power project power purchase agreement. This is the 4th power project we are now commissioning jointly with Bhutan. The previous 3 were, of course, Tala, Chukha and Kurichu. The other important aspect in the hydro sector is the opening of discussions on another major project, that is the Sankosh multipurpose hydroelectric project. Eventually, this is expected to generate over 2,500 megawatts of power, so roughly 4 times the size of Mangdechu. This will be the opening of discussions. Both sides will discuss the modalities, the model under which this will be done, the funding modalities and so on. But this is a priority for the Royal Government of Bhutan in the term of the current government. And so they were looking forward, and we will indicate that we are ready to move forward. In addition to the hydroelectric sector, the second thing we will inaugurate is we are giving priority to the space sector. And the other thing beyond Mangdechu that Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of Bhutan will jointly inaugurate is the ground earth station that ISRO has built at a cost of about 7 crore rupees in Thimphu. This is essentially to utilize the South Asian satellite transponder which we have given to Bhutan. It will be utilized for communication purposes by the Bhutan Broadcasting Service as well as for disaster management, and our objective is to extend coverage to the entire territory of Bhutan in due course through VSAT. So this is the second important inauguration remotely which will be done by the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of Bhutan. The third is a scheme or an idea that Prime Minister has been particularly emphasizing, and that is the RuPay card. As all of you will recall, the RuPay card was launched by Prime Minister in Singapore when he went last year, and it will now be launched in Bhutan. This will be done in 2 phases. In the first phase, and the agreement has already been signed between the Bhutan Royal Monetary Authority and our NPCI. In the first phase, Indian banks will issue RuPay cards which will be used by Indian travelers or Indian tourists or Indian citizens in Bhutan, expected to ease the tourism in Bhutan. The next phase will be where the banks of Bhutan will be empowered or given the authority to issue RuPay cards to Bhutanese citizens to use in India. This is a project which Prime Minister attaches great attention and importance to, and we actually expect to roll out similar rollouts of the RuPay card in other foreign destinations soon. One of the third important rollout that will be done is the linkage between the National Knowledge Network of India and the DRUKREN that is the Bhutanese equivalent of their National Knowledge Network. This is a dedicated link for education purposes which will link universities in India and universities in Bhutan. And it is being done because of our wish to connect with the younger people of Bhutan. This is also the reason why Prime Minister will actually deliver a major address at the Royal University of Bhutan. Our intention is to reach out to the youth of Bhutan and to directly convey to them our interest in closer relationship with India. So among them is the National Knowledge Network Drukren link. At the university, of course, the Prime Minister will be addressing the student body. He will also be meeting all the members of parliament separately. This is of the new parliament of Bhutan elected last November. He will meet all of them as well. Besides that, he will also be discussing with the government of Bhutan certain new sectors that we are interested in, which is healthcare, and that includes the request of the government of Bhutan to help in a new modern hospital, including cancer treatment. Prime Minister is keen on enhancing educational contacts in the STEM area, science, technology and mathematics, and in this area some MOUs are going to be signed between key Indian institutions and the counterparts in Bhutan. On the information highway, of which the National Knowledge Network is one aspect, and on the judicial and legal sector. So in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, this is broadly what I can share with you. A number of MOUs will also be signed in some of these sectors. But this is what I can share with you at the moment. Prime Minister is looking forward to his visit to Bhutan. He has a very strong personal relationship with both His Majesty the King and His Majesty the Fourth King, as well as with Prime Minister Dr. Lote, who also graced the swearing-in ceremony of the Prime Minister in May. And we are confident that as a result of this visit, our unique relationship with Bhutan will be further strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I forgot to introduce Joint Secretary North, Piyush Srivastava. Now the floor is open to questions. Ji, Venkat ji.
Mr. Gokhale, what is the status of the BBIN motor vehicle agreement? Bhutan's upper house had rejected, but this present government, apparently there was a report in April that they are in the process of trying to ratify it. And there was also a project at Dorji Lung, where Bangladesh, India and Bhutan are supposed to collaborate on a hydropower project. Bangladesh wants to invest $1 billion in this, and there hasn't been any movement from the Indian side. Would you like to tell us? Thanks.
Parul?
I wanted to ask you about the dwindling number of Bhutanese students studying in India. This has been a matter of concern. The numbers are going down and they now prefer to travel to other countries for education, even Bangladesh. So what is India doing to remedy this problem?
Sorry, Sandeep.
Sir, is there the power purchase agreement with Bhutan? Apparently there are voices in Bhutan that they say it's time for a revision.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Venkat, as you correctly observed, that the BBIN motor vehicle agreement is a quadripartite agreement which we have all agreed upon. We are currently in discussions with the Royal Government of Bhutan to see when we can bring this agreement into force. So we are confident that we can take this forward, and this will be an important step in connectivity between the four countries. So our government attaches importance to it. On the hydro project between Bangladesh, India and Bhutan, Venkat, I am not aware of the full details. So I would need to check the facts and get back to you. Paro, on the dwindling situation regarding students in India, I think you have really put a finger on an important issue. This is something that the government of India has also been observing. We noted that in the older generation of Bhutanese, many of them had been educated in India. That is why in my opening remarks, I mentioned the focus that this time is being, one of the primary areas of focus are the youth of Bhutan. And what we are expecting from the MOUs and agreements that will be signed there, of which I am obviously unable to share more details, you will discover that the majority of them relate to establishment of linkages between educational institutions in Bhutan and high quality educational institutions in India, particularly in science, technology and mathematics. This is one of the very concrete ways in which we think we can remedy the situation. Besides, of course, making it easier for Bhutanese to study in India through giving of grants and such assistance, which is continuing under our bilateral and ITEC programs. But you are absolutely right. This is an area we should be giving focus on, and I think this time the government will give focus in this area. Sandeep, on the power purchase agreement with Bhutan, we are of course going to sign the Mangdechu power purchase agreement now. Our understanding is that I presume you are referring to the Kholongchu project. Now that is still under discussion. The Royal Government of Bhutan felt that we should first complete the Mangdechu project, including the power purchase agreement, before moving on to the discussing the power concession agreement for Kholongchu. So now that we have commissioned the project and we will be signing the power purchase agreement on the 17th, we are now going to move on to Kholongchu. We are not aware that there is any difference between the two governments on this matter, but of course we are also conscious of the fact that a power purchase agreement has to take into account the interests of both sides, including the capacity of distribution companies to lift the power at a certain cost and to distribute it, given the fact that there are many competing sources of power now. So, of course, this will be a factor in play, but to our understanding, we don't foresee this to be an insurmountable issue.
I'll take the next set of 3 questions, Srinjoy and then Siddhant.
Sir, during the discussions, will there be a review of the Doklam incident and also of the relationship, the defense ties between the two countries?
Siddhant.
Just one clarification on RuPay card. Bhutan will be the second country to adopt and roll out RuPay card, or the third country? Because I know Singapore has already adopted it. So if you can clarify on that.
Akhilesh ji, udhar.
So this is the first time after Doklam issue had taken place, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit. So I think that Bhutan is also in talks with China on the border issues. We are also in talks with China on the border issues. But we had been seeing some reports that China is pressurizing Bhutan to swap some areas that might be strategically very important to us. So do you think that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to talk on this issue when he is going to Bhutan?
Thank you. Let me first take Siddhant's question, because the other two in some form or the other relate to defense and so on. Siddhant, my understanding is this is the second country after Singapore, but there are a number of others which are lined up with which NPCI is in very advanced stages of discussion. But this is the second country where actually the RuPay card will be in use. Trials were completed in March. Srinjoy, you asked sort of one question with 2 parts. Essentially, obviously we will review defense and security matters with Bhutan. This is part of our bilateral relationship. And that includes the situation along the India-Bhutan boundary. But beyond that, I would not like to comment at this stage on the specifics of what will be discussed. I think I will be prejudging the issue. Akhilesh ji, as far as your question is concerned, China-Bhutan boundary talks have been going on for several rounds. If I'm not mistaken, 23 or 24 rounds have already been held of these discussions. So this is a discussion taking place between those two countries. We are not a party to those discussions, and therefore I cannot be expected to comment on what the discussion is specifically in terms of boundary between those two countries.
Shubhajit and then Elizabeth.
So, is the Prime Minister expected to brief or discuss the developments related to Article 370 with the Bhutanese leadership, and has he spoken to any of the other world leaders on this issue?
Elizabeth.
I believe, there was a request to move away from development assistance to Bhutan that India gives, to move away from that. So this 400,000 crore package that we are giving, is that part of that? And what steps have we taken to move away from this development assistance?
Thank you. Maybe last row.
So after we announced demonetization, there was some issue, the Indian currency, the demonetized currency in Bhutan. How did we resolve that issue?
Shubhajit, essentially, I do not wish to disclose at what levels and how we have spoken to a number of governments. I believe the spokesman addressed that issue fairly comprehensively. But all I can say is that the Royal Government of Bhutan has shown understanding that this is a matter which is India's internal affair. Elizabeth, I am not aware of any request from either the Royal Government of Bhutan or any thinking within the Government of India of moving away from development assistance. In fact, my understanding is the Royal Government of Bhutan appreciates the development assistance we give, but we are both agreed that we have to diversify the basis of our relationship beyond hydropower projects into areas like trade, healthcare, tourism, and so on, to make it a more sustainable relationship. For that reason, as I explained, the trade support facility will be given, and we are trying to encourage cooperation in space, healthcare, and so on. But to my understanding, there is no effort on the part of either side to move away from development assistance. As far as the issue of Indian currency in Bhutan is concerned, I am not quite sure of the situation. Would you like to?
Thank you, sir. On demonetization, presently there is no issue. Both central banks have already worked out during that time. So with Bhutan, we have no issue on this. They have the structure for the trade deficit also. We offer to Bhutan currency swap to meet their balance of payment situation. Within that framework, they have already established mechanisms. So this was taken care of within that framework between the two central banks.
Maybe the last set of three questions, Sridhar and Sachin.
So we all know that there is Bhutanese territory which China also regards as its part, so it's in a sense disputed between the two. This ISRO station that's there in Bhutan, you have mentioned that the basic purpose is for disaster management, but does it also have a strategic component? What are the strategic implications?
Sachin.
Sir, I want to say beforehand that mine is a hypothetical question, but given China's courtship of Bhutan and the fact that the two countries remain in touch in whatever way possible, would it come to you as a surprise if Bhutan were to tomorrow, allow China to open not an embassy but a representative office in Thimphu? Thanks.
I'll take the last question.
This is Suresh. Will there be any talk regarding the Bhutanese refugees in Nepal? There are still more than 20,000 Bhutanese refugees in Nepal, in the eastern part of Nepal. And will India ask Bhutan to accept them?
Thank you. Sridhar, I think the ISRO station is essentially meant to help in the utilization of the transponder on the South Asia satellite. We should not read anything further into it. Sachin, I believe that we enjoy a relationship with Bhutan in which neither side will surprise the other. And we are confident that anything that the Royal Government of Bhutan does will be we will be taken into confidence. So I do not believe that we will be caught by surprise. Of course, as you said, that is a hypothetical question. So my answer is in response to a hypothetical question. Suresh, the issue of Bhutanese refugees in Nepal is not something which we discuss with the Royal Government of Bhutan, and certainly not at the level of the top leaders.
Thank you, sir. Piyush, thank you. This concludes the special briefing on Prime Minister's visit to Bhutan. Thank you all for joining.